Guild Wars 2 is a free-to-play MMORPG that released all the way back in 2012 and was developed by ArenaNet and published by NCSoft. Guild Wars 2 is the follow-up game to the original Guild Wars, which is one of my favorite MMOs, but this game ended up being significantly different than the original title. Even though this game has been out for a long time, Guild Wars 2 has still maintained a solid player base to this day and still remains to be one of the more populated MMOs out there. Guild Wars 2 is a game that I personally have an interesting relationship with, trying and failing to get into the game multiple times, but I'm excited to discuss with you guys my thoughts on the game today. So without further ado, let's dive on in. One of the first things you'll notice that when you start playing this game is the very unique leveling process. The leveling in this game consists of two primary things: map completion and your personal story. As you discover a wide variety of things around each map and participate in dynamic events that happen in each zone, you gain experience for discovering those things, as well as extra rewards for discovering everything within a zone. In addition, there are these hearts that are kind of scattered around the map, which are essentially like side quests where you need to do some specific things in the area around the heart to fill it up and then get the completion. And the map completion and heart-based side quests kind of serve as a way to make sure that you gain enough experience so that you can go through your personal story, which can be thought of in a way as your main quest. Personal story is a voice-acted main quest that gets influenced based on decisions that you make before you, during the character creation process, as well as during your gameplay. When creating your character, you can actually define some things about them, which will help influence the path of your story. The personal story is told through the character-specific instances, so it won't be done like out in the world, so it's not like you'll have people interrupting with what you're doing. However, other players can help with another player's story, but they're not able to make any choices that affect the outcome. The story instances also scale with the number of players participating, so you can feel free to do this with friends. Now, you heard me mention character creation. Speaking of which, Guild Wars 2 has 9 different classes, which in this game are known as professions, each with their own subclasses known as specializations. In addition, you have 5 races you can choose from, each with their own starting zone, but thankfully, no class is race or gender locked, so you can play whatever combination you like. The combat in this game is a hybrid tab target action combat style, and when playing Guild Wars 2, you essentially have 2 ability bars, one determined by the weapons that you wield, and the other determined by your class and spec, with multiple choices available per slot. In addition, you can also customize your gear, augment your gear in a variety of ways, as well as select certain passives in your class's skill tree, giving you some solid buildcraft options. Guild Wars 2 also does have horizontal endgame PvE progression, with a ton of available options, from 10-person raids, 5-man fractals, which are essentially their version of like a very high-tier dungeon, lower-level dungeons, which can have story mode or just explorable modes, as well as the overland content that I mentioned. On the PvP side of things, they have a large-scale open-world Zerg v Zerg style combat, which is known as World versus World, as well as more small-scale PvP with their structured PvP that has a variety of game modes, as well as its own ranking system. And the great thing about the small-scale PvP is that all gear and character levels are equalized, so you can literally like hop in at level 3 and just start doing endgame PvP. Guild Wars 2 also has profession system, in-depth housing, guild housing, lots of fashion, pets, and a fantastic mount system, and more. Guild Wars 2 also has a great payment model, with the game being free to play, having purchasable expansions, and a cosmetic/convenience only microtransaction shop. No sub, no Guild Wars 2 Plus, none of that, making this a very consumer friendly and affordable game to play. Now guys, with the short about out of the way, I want to get into the good, the gray, and the bad, like I always do with my Is It Worth Playing videos, starting with the good, and this game does have plenty of it, with the first point being a wide variety of content. The thing that I like about Guild Wars 2 is that there's so many different things in the game that you can do, and because the progression is horizontal, you can kind of do things whenever you want, whenever you're kind of have the gear and are viable to do them. You don't have to do one activity to be able to do another activity, and I have to say, in the past, I was always a big fan of vertical progression, but after playing The Elder Scrolls Online for a really long time and really beginning to appreciate horizontal progression, it's just something that I like a lot about Guild Wars 2, being able to just kind of go in and do whatever content I actually actually want to do and not being forced to do one thing to be able to do another thing. Another thing that I also do like is the payment model. Again, this game is very consumer friendly and affordable to play. I have personally been a big fan. The more games I play, and frankly, the older that I get, I've been really happy with games that don't require a subscription from me, and I can just buy the game, hop in, and play. It just feels like a little bit more time respecting, where it's like, if I don't have time to play, I don't feel like I'm losing money by not playing. So I really do like the payment model of Guild Wars 2 and do find it to be very consumer friendly. Another thing that I like as a big PvP fan is the no gear needed SPVP. I can literally create a character, get out of the tutorial, and then go PvP if I so choose, hopping into the structured PvP mode. I do wish a little bit there was a little bit more character customization, kind of like there is in other MMOs, which I'm going to get to in a hot second. But I will say the theory crafting and build paths available definitely aren't bad. But still, I love the no gear SPVP, not having to farm up gear to be able to play, and just being boosted and being able to fight immediately. This is also a great MMO for people that are completionists. There is a lot of world content, things to explore, things to discover, achievements to get. There is just a lot of things to grab and try to find, making this, like, if you're into exploration, this is going to be a fantastic game for you. And speaking of which, as you explore the world, you're going to come across a ton of mini games like jump puzzles and other fun casual content, giving you stuff to do outside of just the normal raids, dungeons, PvP type of deal. There's a lot of really good casual content in Guild Wars 2. It's also a very alt-friendly game. It's really easy to just make another character, pick up and start another one. It doesn't have as much like character-specific stuff as other games, so it makes it really easy, like if you want to try another character, to be able to hop on and do so. Like I did mention about the builds, this game also does have some decent build variety. I will say, from my experience, it feels a little bit better in the overland stuff or the fractals and raids versus the SPVP. Obviously, if you guys have watched my channel for any amount of time, I'm really into build craft, and the build variety in this game is pretty solid. But I do think that compared to other games, it's leaves a little bit to be desired, but it's definitely not bad. It's definitely, I think, better than a game like World of Warcraft. It's definitely very solid. So not bad at all, but not, I think, as good as some other games. There's also voice acted questing, which I know is something a lot of people are into. All the personal story is completely voice acted, and you're able to influence the quests as you go through them, so you feel attached to your character, you feel attached to the personal story and what you're doing, and you don't feel like you're necessarily just like going through the motions of a quest. You actually do feel tied into your character, the decisions that you make, and there's voice acting for all the different options that you have. Again, not as in-depth as something like Star Wars: The Old Republic, but again, still very solid. I also found the combat in this game to be really, really fun. I think on the surface, it just seems like a normal hybrid tab target action combat. But one of the things that I really like is that there's a lot of interactable things that you can do with the combat, where like if you lay down a certain area and then you use another specific ability within that area, you then create another effect. And so it allows you to combine different like areas as well as with different abilities to get either different buffs on yourself, different debuffs on your enemies, deal certain amounts of damage, and then it adds another level of depth and complexity to the combat that I feel like isn't apparent when you first start playing the game, but as you get into it and kind of learn the specifics of the combat, you notice it really, you notice it really quick. And again, I think it's another cool layer of these interactable areas. I'm forgetting what they're specifically called off the top of my head, but it's a cool feature, and I think it's a really unique aspect to Guild Wars 2's combat, and I think it's something that makes it extremely fun to play. My final pro is also the mount system in the game. I think the mount system in the game is really, really, really good. And I don't think I've ever listed that as a pro for any other game, but in this one, it's really, really, really nice. I would say WoW has a good mount system just because of how many you can collect, but this mount system, not only is there such a wide variety of mounts you can collect, but what I like about them is that all the mounts have different abilities and serve different purposes. So certain mounts are really, really good for closing long distances. Others are really good for vertical jumping and Z-axis movement. Each mount has its own purpose, its own quest that you have to do to go and grab it, or achievements that you have to accomplish. They have their own abilities and customizations that you can do with either dyes or skins off of the microtransaction store. There's just so much that you can do with the mounts, and I find it to be an extremely enjoyable system, and one that and also like the mount movement is really, really good, just like the way the mounts move and everything. Like, I don't know, it's just really, really well done, and I think it's a great system for the game. Now, I only have really one gray area point here, and that is going to be horizontal progression. I personally listed it as a pro for myself. I really do like horizontal progression, but I know that some people do prefer the vertical progression style. They may not like horizontal progression, so I did want to list that here as my only gray area point. Now, in terms of the cons that I have for Guild Wars 2, Guild Wars 2 is it's like a weird game for me, because I don't have a lot of big gripes with the game, but I'm going to kind of get into how I feel about the game in a bit here. So I only have two like primary cons for Guild Wars 2. Number one is the questing system. I have always struggled to get into the map completion, personal story, heart-based leveling. There's just something about it that I don't like, and I try to like it, and I try to get into it. I think I've tried to get into Guild Wars 2, like, I think now I'm up to like 5 times, and the leveling process always just, I don't know, like, there's just something about it that just doesn't grab me, you know? Like, I don't mind map completion, but I'm not really like the biggest fan of map completion, and when so much of the leveling process is based around just running around the map and like doing a bunch of like, you know, random things around the map, I don't know, it doesn't really do it for me. And I know it's just kind of like, you know, some people have said, well, it's just questing without taking out the middleman, where you don't have to, like, you know, talk to a guy and read a quest. But, like, I don't know. I really liked the, like, especially being new, I did, like, really enjoy the leveling process of, like, Star Wars: The Republic, The Elder Scrolls Online, and just, I don't know, when I was new to those games, it just kind of felt like I was doing something while leveling, like a story-based thing, as opposed to just running around and doing random stuff. And like, I know the personal story is there, but I don't know, there's just something about the way that the Guild Wars 2 leveling is paced, and the way that the heart-based leveling, it's just not for me. It's not my personal taste, and I have had other people say something very similar. So just keep in mind that your mileage, I think, is very much going to vary when it comes to the leveling process in Guild Wars 2. I also have personally found Guild Wars 2 to be very similar to the Elder Scrolls Online in one very important negative aspect, where it's kind of a difficult game to, I feel like, get into and kind of figure out everything that's going on. I find the tutorial in the game to be very, very poor as well, and you really don't learn anything. And I don't know, I just feel like the game doesn't do a good job really introducing beginner players into the different systems, how different things work. You know, recently I've been also getting into Albion, and I found the tutorial in that game to be fantastic, and I learned a lot from it. But like, I don't know, I just feel like Guild Wars 2, I learned way more from talking to my Twitch chat and doing my own research, as opposed to like learning things in game. I don't know, I just have personally always found it a little bit difficult to get into Guild Wars 2 and kind of figure out everything that's going on. Maybe just is just me, but again, I have had other people say similar things, and so it's just, again, something I want to mention here, and something to keep in mind, that you're gonna probably need to do a good bit of your own research to kind of just figure out how a bunch of things in the game do work. Now, I want to kind of just get into, before I get into my is it worth playing verdict, I want to get into like kind of how I feel about Guild Wars, because I know you're probably looking at this and you're like, Dottz, this is like way shorter than any of your other is it worth playing videos. And it's because, for me personally, Guild Wars 2 is just missing something that I can't put my finger on. I have tried and failed to get into this game like 5 times over the course of a many number of years. It has been a long time. I think I created my Guild Wars 2 account back when the game came out, because again, I loved Guild Wars 1. And when I first got into Guild Wars 2, I had that like original opinion where it was just like, man, this isn't like Guild Wars 1. I don't like the game, and then I quit. But I've tried over the years to get into the game. Whenever the nostalgia for original Guild Wars hits me, I try to get into Guild Wars 2. try to get into it. And like I said, while it's a fun game, while I do think that, you know, as you can tell, there's a lot more pros on my pro list than my cons list. There aren't a lot of big, egregious cons, I feel, about this game, but it just feels like it's missing a certain something to keep me engaged for the long term. Like, I'll have fun with it and play the game for short periods of time, but ultimately I get kind of bored and put the game down and just go play something else. I just feel like that while the game has a lot of strengths and a lot of good things about it, I feel like other games just do the things that they do well, that this game does well, like even better. And so I feel like I end up gravitating towards those games if I'm looking towards, you know, for something specific, as opposed to Guild Wars 2. I don't know. Like I said, guys, the game doesn't have anything, at least from the hours I've put into Guild Wars 2 so far and the research I've done and people I've talked to, the game doesn't have any massive like red flags that it's like, this is so bad, don't play it. But at the same time, it just feels like it's missing a certain something to make it a game that I sink a lot of time into. I've talked to other people about this. I spent like 20 minutes talking to my Twitch chat about this, and other people felt the same way. They're like, yeah, I agree. There's something about it that is missing. I don't know what it is, but it's just something to keep in mind if you do try to dive into the game. Now, with that being said, do I think Guild Wars 2 is worth playing? Even my own personal, lack of ability to get into the game aside, I do think Guild Wars 2 is a good game and is definitely one that is worth playing. It is a great casual MMO to be able to just hop in, do a wide variety of stuff, and thanks to the horizontal progression, you never have to worry about your character becoming irrelevant and having tons to do to catch up. Again, also, because there is no required sub, it's like, oh, if you need to take a break or you can't play for a couple days, it's not like you're wasting your money. You know, you bought the game, it's there. Once you have the expansion, if you bought it, it's there. Or you could even play free to play for a while and then buy stuff later. Like, it's very, very consumer friendly and a very great casual game. Also, as a PvP player, I love the concept of equalized gear and being able to just hop in and PvP in a small scale environment without having to do a annoying amount of farming to get all of this stuff, to then get all of this stuff, and oh, now I can PvP. You can just hop in and play. There's also just a lot of content to do. So no matter what you enjoy, there will be something in Guild Wars 2 for you, whether it be casual content, exploration, endgame PvE, or endgame PvP. And thankfully, like I said, because the payment model is so friendly, it's not a big deal if you end up start playing it and enjoying it, but then wanting to put it down after a period of time. The game and your account will always be there should you decide to return. But guys, that is going to be it for me today. Guild Wars 2, definitely a solid game, and if you're looking for a good casual MMO to try, definitely one I think that is worth jumping into. What do you guys think about Guild Wars 2? What are your opinions on the game? Feel free to leave them in that comment section below. If you guys did like this video, I'd appreciate it if you did smack a like on it. It really does help me in that YouTube algorithm. And for more MMO Is It Worth Playing content, feel free to hit that sub button as well as hit the bell to keep those notifications on. So thank you so much for stopping by today, guys. I do very much appreciate it. As always, I'm Dottz Gaming, and I'll see you all in the next one.